spoiler-free review of, from a certain
Mm,
point of view, Return of the Jedi.
a book I definitely read.
So I know you haven't read it yet, but I do want to get your perspective on a few things because you've read the previous from a certain point of view, right?
Hmm.
All right, so this is my first time reading it. So there's a few things I wasn't too sure, and as I go through my kind of review on it, I'll get your thoughts on it, and if you have any questions, feel free to jump in. So I
Did you
think
like it?
this is a great book for anthology fans. If you like anthologies, if you anthology stories, if you love the other from a certain point of view books, I think you'll enjoy this one. And of course, if you're a big fan of Return of the Jedi, you're going to really enjoy this because it's basically summarizes the whole movie, but from different points of views. It's great because you can just jump and pick and choose what story you're going to read. If you're
Hmm.
reading a story and you're like, I really don't like this one, let me go read the Anakin one. Or let me go read the Max Rebo one. And you can just jump back and forth. I didn't do this. I like just reading stuff in order, especially because it kind of follows the movie for the most of it. So I
Hmm.
just read it in order. There is some stories I'm like, okay, I want to get through this so I can get to the next one. Most of them are short enough that you can sit down for 30, 40 minutes and go like three of these stories. There's a story, even though it was one of my favorites, but it took me almost an hour. They're freaking heavy. I know I got the digital copy, so I can't show the big hefty one, but it's like 600 pages. Look at that. And I read kind of fast. It took me like a week and a half to get through all of it.
The Empire Strikes Back is longer than the New Hope one.
Right.
Interesting.
So of course, there's a bunch of different type of stories. So if you like stories about creatures, you get those. If you like stories about droids, you get those. You like weird side characters like Mike's Rebo, he has his own story and he shows up like in two more.
Oh,
Bib Fortuna has his story.
what?
Salacious Crumb, the freaking Sarlacc. So if you like all these, there's like a lot of stormtroopers, Speeder, the freaking
The Scout Troopers?
Endor, the scout troopers show up like in two stories. There's of course the Imperial admirals have their own. Lando, Wedge, figuring out how to be leaders when people's lives are in your hands. So you get a bunch of different stories. So you can pick and choose. Again, you might not love the whole book, but there's enough to keep people engaged, which is what happened to me. There's love stories, reluctant heroes, like I mentioned, creatures and all that stuff. So I'm just gonna go real quick through some of the standouts for myself. Some of the stories that I really love. Some didn't surprise me. There are characters that I know and love, and others I was really surprised at how much I love them. So the key to remembering from Olivia Chadda, and this is Torture Droid EV99.
Okay.
He
So,
is there, yeah, from Java's palace that R2 and C3PO end up there. So he loves torturing. That's why he's there.
oh,
But I'll be as spoiler free as I can. I think in one of them I might be a little spoilery, but I'll mention it before. But this is just him trying to understand the maker and the creators and
oh,
trying to remember what makes us different because his memory gets wiped. So it's like, what can I do to remember what happened before and trying to be self-aware basically. And then he meets R2. He calls the anomaly. And then that story, which I think is that second or third story, boom, out of the park. One of my favorite ones. Again, a droid. Who wouldn't know? But I love that story. My Mouth Never Closes by Charlie Jane Anders, and this is the Sarlacc story. You learn a lot about the Sarlacc, how he got to Tatooine, more about that species. He's a vegetarian. Why are people just jumping in my mouth? Why are you doing this? It's giving me gas basically. But it's a funny story. Some people might not like it, and one thing that I kind of why are we doing this? Every time they talk about a creature, be it this one, the rank or whatever, they're just misunderstood creatures. Like sometimes a creature just should be a evil cannibal.
yeah.
But it was an interesting story, so I did enjoy it. The Light That Falls. I love this one. This is Akemi Don Bowman, and it's in Dagobah. the dragon snake that we just see kind of its back, sensing that Yoda or that creature in the hut, like he says, is dying. And as Yoda dies, well, you have the dark side cave and how that affects it. And the feeling in that swamp as Yoda is dying and this predator, she says, starts kind of coming up. Love that story again from the point of view of a snake. From a certain point of view, of course, from Alex Jennings, and here's when I might get a little bit spoilery, so I'll do like this when I'm done, just in case people want to tune out for a couple of minutes. So this is Obi-Wan telling Luke, of course, why he didn't tell him about Vader being Anakin and being his father, and kind of realizing it. But as he's thinking about this, it's realizing that he can trust Luke to the point to reveal that Leia is his sister, or like the other one is your sister, and trusting that Luke's going to make the connection. And understanding why he kept that before, because he saw Luke as Anakin's son, just having the same failures. Like Anakin loved the people around him so much that that's what led him to the dark side. Luke loves everyone the same way, so that's why Obi-Wan was a little bit reprehensive. But he understood at that point that Anakin felt the weight of the world on his shoulders, and that Anakin was the only one that was able to save everyone, at least from his point of view, and that's why he fell to the dark side. Where Luke at this point knows that he's just part of a bigger group, that he can't do it alone, and he needs the help of his friends to be able to push through the darkness and defeat the Emperor. So at that point, it's going to make him a lot harder to seduce to the dark side. When if you tell Anakin, hey, you have a twin sister and they're going to corrupt her, he's just going to go nuts. By telling Luke this, he's able to know that he can't do it, that he needs Han's help. He needs Leia's help. And that's why the Emperor can't turn him at the end. So I really, really love that story. And it took me a while. I read it, I enjoyed it, but the more I sat with it, it really got me into it. No contingency. This was a surprise. Fran Wild writes a Mon Mothma story as she's getting the information from the Bothans about the whereabouts. The Bothans are not mentioned, and I'm surprised that they didn't get their own short story, and I'm very sad. I was really hoping for the Bothans to have their own story. But she's trying to get a courier droid that has this information. She gets attacked by my friend, an Imperial probe droid, that she's trying to get this information back. And it's basically Mon Mothma saying, I'm putting everyone else's life in danger. I need to do this. So she puts herself in danger to go get that information. There's mention of Jean, mention of Cassian, mention of Luthen. So it kind of brings Andor into it. And this is it. Trooper Trouble. Laura Paul is a stormtrooper keeping daily logs of the mundane life of a trooper on the Death Star. And this was my favorite story. This should be an animated short. It's every day is a new day. Log 15, TK, what's it? TK 423, talking about this rivalry that she has with a droid, R2Q9, that keeps logging him out of its room, keeps bumping into him. He knows that the droid hates him, complaining that they don't refill the caf. The coffee machine is broken. They never fix it. They even have a bingo card like people do on Twitter. When a new show is going to come, they get a bingo card because Vader is showing up. What's going to happen? Who's going to be the first one to faint because they haven't standing in line for 8 hours. And here's when they talk about unions, because all the stormtroopers are sick to just being on the Death Star. They don't get paid. They don't have no coffee, all this stuff. And they can't say the U word, and they just call it Ugnaught. So every time they have, it's codename Ugnaught. It's the union.
Okay.
And of course, when the day that they're going to go on strike is when the rebels attack. So they can't really push on it. And I forgot to do, I'm done with my spoilers like 3 stories ago. And then, of course, I'll finish up with Brotherhood by Mike Chen. And this is Anakin, after he dies, being redeemed and joining the cosmic force, basically, hearing the voices of all the people that he's loved, Shmi, Padme, Qui-Gon, and this ethereal form of Obi-Wan Kenobi that shows up and starts talking to Anakin and trying to explain what's going on. But it's then Anakin, like I just mentioned, thinking that the whole world is in his shoulder, even though he just died, but he's getting redeemed, trying to say, okay, I still need to fix it because all this was my fault. And Obi-Wan saying, like, no, 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 look out there. You see that little kid looking at us? That's your son. And you know who's coming? That's your daughter. They did it. You don't need to worry about it. Like, they saved the day. So those are my favorite stories. There's about, I counted 10 stories that I really either love or really liked. The others were a little bit meh for me. But I'm saying this is not the type of book for me. I'm not an anthology guy. I'm not one that really cares about all these background characters. So, oh, the Imperial that found Luke Skywalker on that gangway before taking him to Vader. Okay, great. There's 3 ebook stories. They're good. I'll say every story is very well written. There's not one that you don't know what you're doing. This isn't Star Wars. It's just these aren't characters that I really am attached to. There's only there. It's not a continuation that okay, what happened here is gonna. Episode 3 is coming back. It's like I don't care. Yeah, it's Max Rebo. Great. It's not for me. So in that sense, I can't recommend it in terms of I love this book, go ahead and read it. But I'm not gonna tell you guys if you really like anthologies and you like knowing what all the characters were thinking, then maybe it's for you. One thing I want to get your points because I haven't read of the from a certain point of view stories. A lot of these stories start with a character in a scene from the movie for about 2 paragraphs, and then goes and talks about his life for 7 pages about nothing I have to do about Return of the Jedi, and then comes back for the last two sentences, and I'm dead because the station blew up. But it has nothing to do with Return of the Jedi. Is that basically how it is?
Yeah. I'm not a huge fan of these books. I think they're fun, and I see a lot of people get angry, like, oh, they're filling everything up, and it's like, come on, like this isn't like strictly canon. Like I don't see any of these movies and be like, oh yes, because this happened. Like with some stories, yeah, but it's not really like what I think about. So in that sense, I think it's silly when people get mad when another one of these comes out and they don't love it.
Yeah.
But yeah, like with the other ones, there are stories I like, there are stories I don't like, and that's fine. And I don't really think about them that much. So that's just me. Alberto, you said you were not a fan of anthology books. I think that means you're not liking Tales of Light and Life.
I'm loving Tales of Light and Life because these are characters that I already know. The first story is about Axel Greylark. The first 2 words are Axel Greylark, and a big smile came in my face. The second story is about Marda Rowe. I love the story so far. So these are characters that I know that are pushing that story forward. If we get an anthology from the little children that saw Marda give Kefmo a flower, then I'm like, what is this? I don't care. But these are characters that I know. So a lot of...
No, I just want to say that I was joking, but they're fun celebrations of a movie that's been milked up for the past 40 years. I don't mind them for that because
it's not, again, all the stories are very well written, and I think people are gonna connect to a lot of different ones. It's just not the type of book with the characters that usually I'm attracted to. Like the Boba Fett story, underwhelming for me. It really didn't do anything. That you didn't need that story. He's just sitting there because it repeats stuff that already happened in the Bounty Hunter comic book series. Like, okay, we know that. I know some people didn't read it, so understand it. But the comic, which is Akbar, is 2 pages, and it's all to lead to him saying it's a trap.
No.
Look, I'm sorry that I spoiled it. I'm sorry. It's not good. That's the only one that I say just get that out of here.
I have it pre-ordered. I'll probably like skim through it. I did it with the Empire. I eventually like read it all, but I went to some stories where it's like, does it have like the first story that's the crawl thing?
Yes.
Okay.
It did have it. Okay. It did get me. Was it the first or was it the last one? I think it's the last one. It's about the whales. I think it's the
Is
last
it the
one.
last one? Okay.
Yeah. And again, that was a cool little fun haha. But it's like, oh, I thought the wheels at the end of Return of the Jedi was going to be a little bit different. But yeah, it's kind of just going over the crawl.
Yeah.
All right. So and I gave it a positive review. I think in general, it's a good one. Wheels.
It's always there.
Yeah, because
it's
it
fun.
starts with, and here we are with Revenge of the Jedi. No, you can call it Revenge of the Jedi. The Jedi have no revenge. Oh, so Return of the Jedi. Yeah, that makes more sense. Like, okay, it's very fourth wall breaking type of story.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, again, it's fun book. There's nothing to get angry about. There's no story that contradicts a big canon event. So if you just want to sit down for 3 months and pick a story every day, then it works.
I got a little bit sour because not long ago I was listening to a podcast, Star Wars podcast, and they were talking about it was when they revealed all the stories that were coming out. They were like very upset about it. I was like, just don't read it. Like,
yeah.
Oh, now everyone gets to tell a Star Wars story. No, now I have to know what this character. No, you don't. You don't have to know what Max Rebo did. Like, no.
That's the point of this book. You don't need to know anything about any of these characters. If you know the movie, you'll know the steps that they're going through, and you'll know some of the characters. Some are brand new characters that were in those scenes. There's some good kind of love stories in there.
You just told me that the Sarlacc is vegetarian. Like, do you think that I'll ever think about this when I watch Return of the Jedi? Like,
maybe.
No.
When they fall down and he starts burping out, it's funny. The Sarlacc one was a funny one. It just was. Does the Sarlacc really need this compassionate side to him? No. You can watch the movie and still say that he's really digesting them for 1,000 years. He complains about Boba Fett falling down with his this jetpack.
The last thing I'll say, there's a story in the New Hope one that I remember people got upset when they read it, and I loved it. It has to do with R5, and he does the sacrifice to have Owen take R2 instead of him. I always loved that story, and I remember people were very upset, like, "Oh, that wasn't in the original movie." Like, oh.
Yeah, I mean, none of this is. But it's cool because then, like the EV-99 that we know in Mandalorian, he's there. We've seen Book of Boba Fett, I can't remember. He's there in the cantina.
Mm-hmm.
That's basically how this ends. He's working at the cantina with R5, and then they have that conversation. So some of them will surprise you. Maybe some of them surprise you that I didn't really like that much, but we'll see.